We are on part 3 of episode 2 investigation of Curtain Call. First, I just wanted to briefly bring some interesting tidbits, I guess. On the website, there's this picture, and it says, that they're celebrating the Prohibition ending in 1933. So that kind of made me wonder, are these mob ties? The liquor ledger, like how much he's spending on liquor, seems a little bit off versus how much he's taking in. More union news regarding this ledger. So I just thought that was interesting that Prohibition ended in 1933. So maybe that's why he still has all these debts. Props to the boss. Like maybe there was some, bootlegging or something to that effect. Maybe that's where some money is going to come in, because we know in the case we are going to have to find some money in order to save the theater for Julia. So, also, just a few small things. Remember, we have this Karen letter that Ruth sent, pleading Ira to not cast Viola. And in it, she quotes Proverbs 3:27-35, withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. I don't know. I just thought that was funny because, the cane was in someone's hand, probably hers, and she beat Viola's skull in with it. So now I want to move to really, and then just briefly too, in this Dear Deborah article, she mentions how unhappy she is being a new mother. And, her husband's always gone, and she doesn't have any friends, and she only has friends with the people that he works with. And the respondent just said, oh my gosh, get over yourself. You are lucky, and you should stop complaining so much, Karen. And that plays in because also the lady says that she should visit him at her work, and she does on the night of the murder. She does go up there. So let's move on to like the three most important pieces of evidence that we've gotten thus far. First, Sampson's notes. This is just an interesting tidbit. On here, for home, he has, to pick up milk, pick up the dry cleaning, and Luis's Cosmopolitan. Maybe Luis was his wife, maybe his husband. I don't know. Who is Luis? Okay, so we have here, Ira has priorities. Again, back with the responsibilities. What are their responsibilities? What are their priorities? He wrote, Ira is favoring Evelyn. Now we also have George too hands-on and tense in the way. This is interesting because it models Olga's behavior as well. Olga is known to be very intense and a crazy stage mom. And so, maybe he's been hanging out with her too much. Who knows? Also in the notes, it says, Ira is the director, and we need to have a sit-down. In the notes, we also have talk to Hector. What is he going to talk to him about? Maybe the payment to Ira for the responsibilities? I definitely get the impression that Sampson is kind of the middleman. He's obviously a dear friend to Viola, and he wants to help her. So, and he seems to be, definitely a protagonist in the story. And his timetable seemed to be the most accurate as well. And we'll get into a little bit of that later. Also, interesting of note, George told Sampson where to get the flowers, and he demanded dog roses. So George, I guess this kind of goes to George and Viola having an affair, but I don't think that's the case. I think that's a red herring. But George knows what kind of flowers and where Viola likes to get her flowers from. So that's where he told Sampson to go. Here we have, signs that Olga's an alcoholic, because he said, he scratched off the vodka and said, bad idea. And later, outside of after the fight, at least one person said that Viola was drunk as a skunk. So these are the main takeaways But also something important to note as we move on is here on the notes, we have 4:52. Ruth stops in, take 5. And then at 5 o'clock, they're back at it. And this is important because there's going to be another time discrepancy between the different stories. And I believe that we are supposed to take the stagehand Samson's word for it. I think that his time is more accurate. So now we will move on to Viola's letter. We do not know who the darling is that this is addressed to. This is November 24th, 1933, so a year before her disappearance. She titles the darling, but that doesn't mean that it has to be someone that she's in love with or having an affair with. I mean, at that time, darling could refer to anybody, so we're not sure if this is a lover or just a close friend. But she did mention that she embroidered the handkerchief that we saw, and on it has an E and a V, which we use to decipher this letter. Also, Evie, I believe, is Evelyn and Viola, so I think that this letter is to Evelyn, and I think that they shared a very close friendship. But also, the important things in this, which I think is very important, she says, Ruth has been talking a lot of smack to me and saying some not nice thing, and she wishes that I was never cast in duo. Clearly, Ruth thinks that Viola and her husband are having an affair. But what's interesting is that Viola says, I genuinely have no idea what she could be talking about. So that, to me, completely rules out the possibility that Viola is having an affair with Erikson. I think a much more plausible thing is that Ruth is mistaken. I know that Viola and her mother lived together, so perhaps Ruth saw Erikson going to their apartment, but it wasn't to see Viola. It was probably to see Olga. Also, she mentions Ruth's pregnancy. Seems like Ruth was genuinely pregnant. I know that we have kind of 2 pregnancies going on at the same time. Viola was about to be pregnant, or is pregnant and doesn't know it, perhaps. And Ruth is pregnant. She says how much this person has been an amazing confidant, how trapped she feels. She thanks the person for showing her the big picture and allowing her to make my own choice. I think choice is another interesting phrase. I think from this letter we are definitely supposed to have a sympathetic takeaway from Viola. I think that we're supposed to like her and see that she genuinely feels trapped. She feels like her mother and Hector are kind of making all of her decisions for her, and she wants more than anything to, right here, make a choice on my own. We do know that she is the one that decides to break up with Hector, so maybe that is the choice. Choice is also, could be something else. So this is really important, and I think it could only be a few people that she could be sending this to, but I believe that it is Evelyn. So now we will move on to what I think is the most important piece of evidence. In the case, sorry, I made a couple of videos. I don't know if this is, I did want to include here, again, they're talking about some theaters are only charging 25 cents for entry. That seems weird. I think maybe there's some cookbooks going on. But this whole piece of evidence is mostly saying that people are going to, the big screen instead of Broadway. And we know that was in Viola's plans, at least for her mother. Her mother expected her to go to the movies. And then on the other side, we know that Evelyn's doing great as she took over for Viola. So, but she feels like, Evelyn feels like she's always going to be standing in Viola's shadow, and she seems fine with that. Again, we see that Ira is infatuated with Evelyn and even wants to make a new show for her. So, now we're going to move on to the most important part of the case so far. Tune in for the new break in the case in the next video.